Welcome, you're on the Fringe show. I'm your host, Tatiana Zalan, and I go live on Fridays at 2 p.m. Dubai time. The Fringe is about our future and present, technology, arts, and society. I help you to navigate the rapidly changing world so that you too can take advantage of the opportunities. I continue with this series of secrets of the digital art world because this is something that really excites me. And in the previous show, I talked about how the new world of art, the digital art, is in search of a new visual language. In secret number 4, today I'm going to talk about the yin and yang of creating art that sells, because one of the most common complaints from emerging artists, new artists in the digital art space is, well, my art doesn't sell. So today, drawing on my experience as a business professor, I'm going to talk about two components of what makes your art sell. And that's the yin and the yang. The yin is getting your strategy right, and the yang is promoting art. Disclaimer, the usual one, the views are my own. They do not represent the views of organizations or employees I'm associated with. The Fringe show is for educational purposes only. And I wanted to create this show, particularly because I came across a comment from a digital art collector some time ago on Twitter. And he's saying, well, pricing art is difficult. A lot of young artists are approaching him, DMing him, because he is a known collector in the space. And they're complaining that they have no sales. And then when you check them, well, it's no surprise, really. It's a new artist, no track record online or offline, and sometimes this single artwork is priced equivalent to a month's rent in most cities. So it's immediately obvious that these artists are disconnected from reality. And what I want to do is to bring a dose of reality to selling art and using the common business principles, because selling art is, after all, a business. So let's see how it happens. And there are 4 steps which belong to the yin of it, and 4 steps belong to the yang of selling art. Step number 1. Starting with defining your strategy. There are 7 strategies that are available to digital artists and artists more generally in the art world today. I have no time to go through them in a lot of detail. I'll just name them, and perhaps I'll need to make a whole new show about these 7 strategies. So what are they? Number 1, non-commercial art. Art that by intention is non-commercial. In the end, that art, surprisingly enough, turns out to be most valued and commercially successful. Number 2 is commercial art. There are other words for it to describe it: academic art, salon art, and the key to it is technique. Number 3, a famous artist for the poor. It's an imitation of a famous artist for those collectors that cannot afford the original. So Basquiat is one of the famous artists to be imitated and can be put into this category. Number 4, original traditional media. There is a lot of art in this category and a lot of competition too. Number 5, an idea concept that's explored through traditional media, but the concept itself is very new, experimental, something quite out of this world. That's similar to non-commercial art. Number 6, art as an event. Can be computer art, street art, public art, land art, performances. They all fall into the same category. And number 7, editions. Photographs, NFT editions are a very popular way of thinking about this type of art. Some of these strategies are totally exclusive, and this is why it's important to pick one and probably stick to it at least for some time. Because you can't be a commercial artist or non-commercial artist at the same time. These are different customers, totally different customers, a very different way of how art is sold and displayed, and so on and so forth. So they are mutually exclusive. Number two is target audience. At this present stage, I think we have at least two rather clear target audiences in digital art, or people who are buying this kind of art. First is digital art or fine art, and that's nothing new. It's existed since probably the 60s, and it has a very traditional professional audience, very similar to physical art. It just happens to be in a digital form. Segment number two is all these crypto bros and coders and gamers. They live inside their digital world and have really no interest in the processes that are happening in the art space. And the third segment is relatively new. And this is big, usually a luxury brand who are creating memorable experiences for their audiences through NFTs and metaverses. High fashion brands are there, clothing, bags, cosmetics, and watches. They typically team up with known artists whose styles matches their corporate styles or styles of these brands. But it's also important to understand that it's a very fluid market and new segments are emerging all the time, which means that there will be new customers too. And what we're seeing now as well is this fusion of art and design and fashion, VR and AR. It's all very experimental. And a great example of that would be human experience design. It's a friend of mine who does that kind of art. His name is Vesa. He's multi-award winning artist who moved into digital art long before NFTs became popular. When we talk about target audiences in business, we typically think of them in a very structured way. We use customer avatars or buyer personas, and that's the profile of your ideal customer. Who that's typically a psychographic profile rather than anything else. It's not so much about demographics or where they live, but more about what that art means to them, what they think about it, what they feel about it, and what they say about it, and what their pain points are in that space too. There are multiple templates on customer avatars by personas. You can Google and you can use these templates to construct your own avatar. Now, step number 3, research your competition. Of course, every strategy is competitive, so you need to be competitive out there. Look at similar projects and artworks in your chosen category. Look at what works, the idea, the concept, the image, the style. Look at how they promote their art. What are the websites? Do they have some social media activity? Who is their following and how big is it? What's their pricing? And this is where pricing comes in. Yes, you need to look at your competition and also compare yourself. Are these emerging artists? How much they're charging? Or these are established artists? And of course, they will charge a lot more. Then the strengths and weaknesses of your competition. After you understand that, you can say with confidence what's unique about you that you can offer. Look at their positioning. Look at both successful and failed projects. We often learn a lot more from failures than from firm successes. And talking about positioning, step number 4 here is positioning. You need to find what kind of very distinct, unique position you're occupying in your customer's mind. Generally, it is expressed in one catchy phrase, could be enough or easily understandable to your target audience. A parallel in startups, we have like a 30-second pitch, sometimes called elevator pitch, when you very quickly say, what market are you serving, who you serve, what value you offer, how you position your offer, and what makes you different from the competition. A very well-known example, Airbnb, they, in the original pitch deck, they said something around, well, book rooms with locals rather than hotels. And then they explain in a bit more detail what they are. A web platform where users can rent out their spaces to save money when traveling, make money when hosting, and share culture for local connections to the city. So they're clearly a web platform, so that they're not a traditional hotel, that's very clear, and they're about either saving money or making money for both sides of the market. If we're looking at something closer to art, the Museum of Modern Art will say that they celebrate creativity, openness, tolerance, and generosity. So they're clearly specifying their values very clearly. We aim to be an inclusive place, both online and offline, where diverse cultural, artistic, social, and political positions are welcome. They are emphasizing that both online and offline. They're committed to sharing the most thought-provoking modern and contemporary art, and art that explores ideas and issues of our time. So clearly they're focusing on contemporary art, and not just any art. They're clearly not interested in this number 2 category, strategy number 2, which is commercial art, but doesn't really address the issues. There is a lot of it. It's the art that has a very, very distinct social stance. And this is the ying part for you, thinking about your strategy, your target audience, your competition, and positioning. Don't skip it. It's very tempting to move straight into what I call the yang, promoting your art, selling your art, but it's not enough. There is a lot of prep work, a lot of thought, ideation that goes into it. But now let's come to the promotion. So step number 5, make yourself visible. Firstly, create a website and show your portfolio. Create an artist statement. It's amazing how many artists just don't do that. And people sometimes buy you just for the artist statement. And an artist statement is far more effective than your CV. In an online world, nobody has got the time to read through your CV. No one will. Do an artist statement instead. Choose your social media very, very carefully. On Instagram, yes, there are billions of users, but there are three major limitations. This is not to say that you shouldn't be on Instagram. You should. This is where you can you can display your portfolio, but be aware of these 3 things, these 3 limitations. Number 1, you're competing for attention with these cute cats and dogs. And believe me, cute cats will always win in a competition for attention. Number 2, Instagram is not really very well suited for organic or viral growth. So unless you are prepared to pay a lot of money, then probably Instagram is not for you. And for that reason, Instagram is very important, is very expensive for growth. Here's a little tip for you. Carousel posts are very effective, and Instagram loves them. So if you can produce those, you will have an edge, you will have an advantage. Another one that you probably need to think about is Twitter. And that's a must for digital artists, because this is where your collectors are. It's great for organic and viral growth, unlike Instagram. And of course, you need to be on specific sites like Discord. I'm not talking about those. And the third thing that you need to probably think about is other platforms or galleries. They have much smaller audiences. They're in the thousands, not in the millions, not in the billions, but they have very targeted and specific audiences. You don't need to look for your collectors, so consider them. Most importantly, remove all frictions for collectors. They need to very clearly see that there are your contact details. They need to be clear that they can buy from you. How can they buy from you? Is it credit card or something else? And put your prices. Sometimes when digital artists are advertising on the internet, putting up their work, they don't do that. And that's a huge mistake. Just be clear about your pricing. And if you think that your pricing somehow is not right, maybe, then consult an expert. There are plenty of experts, curators, professional art critics. Definitely go for them. Step number 6, build and nurture networks. Why build networks? Well, you can say, well, I'm not that kind of person. I hate going out. I'm an introvert. Most artists are. Why waste my time going to various meetings, parties, gatherings, conferences, and so on? Well, the answer to that is because even if you're a digital artist and sell mainly online, face-to-face communication is still best for building trust. And trust is fundamental for all business and commerce. And I can offer you a couple of do's and one don'ts when you think about building and nurturing your social networks. 2 do's. Make a plan of various events for a few months and go to these events. Make yourself memorable. Think very hard about your personal style and image. Consult a stylist and perhaps an expert in personal branding if necessary. And one don't. Don't hard sell your art to potential collectors. It's off-putting. Try to warm up collectors talking about other things that might interest them as well. So try to learn to talk about other topics. Step number 7, show your work. You can do it in multiple ways, in 2 ways really. Either do it yourself through social media, or if you're not that kind of person who wants to do it yourself, and some people either don't have the time or they're not really good at that, then you need to think about hiring an agent or an art manager. And this is part of your job as an artist, just like building your social networks. It's your job. This is your job as well. It's part of your work. It's clearly very much essential in today's digital world. And step 8, the last one, learn to work with the media. Press releases can be rather expensive. I get approached a lot of times on LinkedIn for my other connections, for the other work that I do. And the kind of prices that I'm sometimes quoted for getting my article out in Forbes or in some entrepreneurial magazines is rather steep, anything from $3,000 to $5,000. So be ready for that. Are you ready to do that? Maybe you can contact the press yourself, be persistent, reach out, and you may be lucky. In fact, you might be amazed at how many people are prepared to help you, to put you in touch with the right people so that you probably don't have to pay the full price. So, my parting thoughts, rather summary of what we've been through. There are 4 steps in the yang part of it, which are strategic elements that you need to look after, take care of, and 4 steps, the yang, the promotion. First, define your strategy, identify your customer avatar, research your competition, and think about your positioning. Then you're moving on to the promotional part. Make yourself visible. Build all these social networks, social media channels. It's part of your job as an artist. Show your work, either yourself or with the help of somebody else. And finally, engage with the press. And then you will be unstoppable. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being on the show. And I'll see you on Friday again at 2 p.m. Dubai time. Goodbye.